Hey everybody, good morning. It's a Saturday. I am not working out today. Um, I was stretching this morning, and I'm tired. Been doing a bunch of stuff, just kind of staycation kind of things. So yesterday was a lot of time on my feet, and the day before, I mentioned on a video yesterday, I had like 20,000 steps. And then did a deadlift workout yesterday morning, and then did another 10 or 11,000 steps throughout the day, running around on the beach and having a good time. But so it kind of brings me to something I wanted to talk about, which is like what's my motivation for doing this for all the years that I've been doing it, right? I've been lifting for a long time, and using it as part of my my health regimen, I'll call it, for lack of a better word. So one of the things, I guess, growing up, you watch, you're a kid, right? And little kid of the late 70s, early 80s. And one of the things that, you watch movies, right, when you're growing up, and you see certain images you want to portray, and you think, oh, that's what I want to grow up to be like. And one of those that came out in the 70s, right, in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, was the idea that there's the big jacked leading guy, right, like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Conan the Barbarian. I almost said Conan O'Brien. Conan the Barbarian, and then other Schwarzenegger movies that were hugely popular at the time. The rise of wrestling, televised wrestling, that became really popular. With WWE and the with WrestleMania. So yeah, like that had it had an effect on me mentally when I was youth, and that's kind of what I thought it would be like to be I got to be a dude out there in the world, right? And that's part of being a dude is being this big, huge, jacked person. So what am I rambling on about? So right, I'm been a husband for a while. I've been married for a long time, more than 2.5 decades. I've got a couple of kids. And, one of the things that you want to do is you want to protect them, and you want to make sure that everything's safe at home. So part of working out and being strong is so that you can do those things. Now, recently, over last year, I've also said, well, it's time to lose some weight, because I mentioned this also in some of these other videos, that I want to exist longer. So not being over 300 pounds is going to be helpful to that. It's going to be conducive to living longer. So I've lost a lot of weight. But still, I still work out, right? I still lift, not heavy, but heavy compared to the average, and still maintaining a bit of size, nonetheless. So yesterday I was returning home, right? It was a location that you have to access by ferry or by plane, but it's a small airport. 99% of the people who get to this location take a ferry. And it's a place that most people visit just for the day. So it's like ferry in the morning and ferry back home in the evening. So we were returning home, and we were on the top deck of this ferry, because the kids wanted to kind of, ride the ferry back with, you're out in the sunlight as the sun's getting low on the horizon, right? There's a nice kind of aesthetic, as it were, to the ride home. And anyhow, so we're sitting there, and there was two young people, male and female, sitting there kind of across the way from us. When I say young, I mean like late teens, early 20s, young folks. And this absolutely drunk dude gets onto the boat, and he plops right next down to this young girl and proceeds to like put his arm around her and like drag her in, like bring her in, like in a way that would be like familial, right? Like, oh, this is her father or uncle or someone who knows her relatively well, right? But he didn't know her at all, and this kid freaked out, rightfully so. She freaked out. The guy that was with her stood up. He's like, "Oh my God, you groped her. What's your problem?" And they split. They were smart. They got up and they got out of that situation. And but by the time that had happened, the ferry was pretty full there. So I had my wife go down to the deck below, and she's like, "There's no room really to move," because I was at least going to tell her to move herself and my kids just to get out of that spot. But unfortunately, there's nowhere for them to go. So I'm sitting there for the rest of this ride, staring this guy down, and he's with two other guys. They're all old too, and I at least a decade on me. And I'm just staring them down. And I'm ready. I'm ready to throw a person overboard. I had no qualms about this guy getting a heave because he was a complete dirtbag. And then after he accosted this young lady, then they're sitting around like joking about it and being like one. Well, I'll get to like just saying really sketchy, stupid stuff. And then like one guy who didn't even look. It sounds stupid, but he didn't even look Hispanic. They're like yelling at this guy, "Ice, ice." I mean, it was just the most. It was not a good display of humanity. So, one of the reasons why I still do this workout stuff and why I maintain other aspects of health as well is in case of I need to do something. I need to handle a problem. And I'll admit that being over 50, I ain't gonna be able to do much. Not like I could have done a decade ago, but at least I'll know I've been able to do something. And in that case, I was, like I said, I was ready. I would have. I was waiting to do something if something needed to be done, which meant the rest of the ride on this ferry, which is about an hour. I was just sitting, again, staring at this guy, and he passed out eventually, staring at this guy and his group of people, and basically with some low-level surge of adrenaline, just waiting for something to happen, which thankfully never did. Nothing more happened other than this guy basically like simple assault or accosting this young lady. And again, she was able to get out of that situation. And kudos to her too. She reported it to police. Then when we got off this ferry, I made a statement to the state police and to the local police as well, which ended up in me having to go to the state police barracks and make a sworn statement. But anyhow, point being, why I'm rambling around after I stretched out my shoulders and my hips this morning, is that we all have a reason to do what we do. There needs to be some motivation that gets us into the gym. And that motivation comes from myriad places. And part of that, in my case, is just, it sounds cheesy, it sounds like national defense, but it's force projection, right? That I want to look like a guy who might not be able to completely kick your ass, but it'll make it a difficult time for you to deal with me. If it's, I mean, if it's just, mano a mano, so to speak. Again, it's the idea that we shouldn't have to be laying hands on each other. We should not have to be doing these kinds of things. We're hopefully civilized people, and we should be able to negotiate things verbally and sensibly. But in the case of this guy who was completely obliterated on alcohol, sometimes you need to be ready to do something. And this was a case where I felt pretty confident that my over 50 ass would have thrown his over 60 ass right off the side of the boat if it needed to be done. And I was just, it was a wild bit of a day yesterday on that trip home. But it made me, just think about, well, again, why does everything happen, and why do we do certain things in response to those? And so while I was out here stretching, thought, well, maybe I'll just chat about why I started lifting and why I continued to. And so, a lot of it was I wanted to be that big, strong looking dude who could handle himself. Don't know how far I made it. But I will say that there were people on the boat who during and after the situation they understood that. Well, one woman in particular was like, okay, you would have been the guy to handle what was going on. And I was also a little bit verbal while this was going on as well, because this guy assaulted this young lady, and then his crew of idiots continued to blather on. And I was a little bit vocal about how their display of humanity was not quite as, it was lacking. We'll leave it at that. So, just wanted to, again, blather on for way too long about some aspect of why I do this stuff. And I mentioned, like I said, to wrap up, I mentioned in the past, a lot of it is health at this point in time. It's keeping joints healthy. It's keeping, the blood pumping. It's good for transient blood pressure, so that, your blood pressure system works well. All the good aspects of why we do strength training, I do those for as well. But what got me started, a long time ago, and what kind of sat in the back of my head was the idea that, hey, let's be a big, strong, jack-looking dude, so that if we got to throw down, we got capabilities in handling ourselves. And over the years, I've put on a good bit of mass, and not to say that I look like the guy who's going to kick ass in every situation or something like that, but I at least look like I could, be an obstacle, like a speed bump. But anyhow, it just note that we all have reasons for why we get into the gym and why we do the things we do, and keep that in mind, as well as the other aspects as we evolve in our time out here. But if I have to say one more final thing, I'd leave it at this, is that if you're out there and you're having a good time, be careful with yourself. Don't be abusing substances to the point where you're literally accosting other people that you don't know, compromising their situation. And in the case of this guy, I don't know what was, the cops had him pulled over when he got off that boat, and they put him in the back of a cruiser. So, this guy is, who knows? Who knows if he had a record? Who knows if he's getting arrested? Who knows if this young girl's going to press charges? I don't know. All I know is I gave my own testimony as to what I saw. And what I saw was not a good situation, and should have been easily preventable if the guy if he had had his wits about him. But he didn't, because he was, again, completely obliterated. So that being said, probably gonna walk again way too much today. Today I'll be in a big city walking around. My legs are killing me. I'll probably have to stretch them out good again tonight and tomorrow morning. But yeah, hope everyone is having a good weekend, and hope you're staying safe out there, and hope that you and your families are good. All right? Peace.